Hi everyone, I'm Mike with Crane Realty. Hope you're all doing really well. This video I'm going to be discussing an event that I went to at the end of last month with regard to the Rochester Economic Forum. Essentially, it's a forecasting of the economy for 2024, and everyone's who's who in the Rochester market was attending. That's, major leaders in banks, housing development, political figures, and many, many more. Really great event. I was excited to go to this one. I learned a lot. In fact, I'm thinking of making a handful of videos and kind of sprinkling them in over the next coming months or two. One video in particular I wanted to share with you. I'll give you essentially a screen recording of a snippet of that event that took place where Jim Yockel, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, the chief officer of the Greater Rochester Association of Realtors, who's presenting and essentially sharing his findings and his projections for the coming year and the challenges ahead. So without much ado, I'm going to transition to that, and at the end of it, I'll share my thoughts. Thanks.
And here's the worst one, the month supply of inventory. Joel had a great slide where you said nationally it's about 3%, which is half of what it should be, and we're at 1.2%. So my math says that's a quarter of what it should be, and this is the problem. There is no supply. We get new listings, there's a lot of demand, they come off really quickly, we get the sales, but this is not sustainable. We literally can't go much lower than where we are now. And that is, I think now we're at the point where that is hindering our region's economic growth and our prospects for the future. And I have a couple of ideas why and some possible solutions. And this is where I think it starts to get interesting. So this is sales by price range over the last 4 or 5 years. And the yellow chart, or the yellow bar, is the one I want to look at. That's the 100 to 199 price range. And you can see in 2021, we had 7,400-ish homes sold. 2023, 4,100. So part of that maybe is this median creeping up, and some homes that are sold that would have been in that price range are just now in the other one. But look at the kind of purplish chart next to it. That's not really changing that much. It's not going up. It's not like the 200 to 299 is picking up tons of listing or tons of sales because of that. That's pretty stable. So the question is, where are those listings going? If you look the last 3 years, the 300, 399, 400 and up are pretty much flat. So something is happening, and we're just losing those sales in that 100 to 199 range. And I think the answer is you can't build anything that you can sell in that price range. If it doesn't already exist, there's no way to fill that gap. And that's the problem. And we'll talk about that more on the panel. But this is where all of those people who want to be homeowners are blocked out of the market. And this is not going to change unless we as a community do something to make it change. So I just did it by percentage of price range, similar concept. I think only partially attributable to the median sale increasing, but in 2019, 45% of closings were in that 100 to 199. Now it's 30. Here you see a little bit more where that next level up is picking up some of the slack, but not enough to, I think, really make a difference. 2024 preview. Any questions on 2023? Everybody kind of knows that, right? I didn't have to change my slides all that much from last year. And I joked with Mike, we're doing our annual press release for the stats today, and we're running out of ways to describe the same situation. It's challenging as a writer to describe it differently. It's the same situation. So these are the factors that impact pricing. So what's gonna change? Inventory of homes, probably not. Interest rates, Joel just talked about that. I looked on Realtor.com. I didn't want to give any one lender a plug here, but the fixed mortgage rate, 6.8% in the Rochester area. It's not awful. It's better than it was, but it's way more than people are used to, and that's leading to that lock-in effect, and you hear it every day. Recession, we don't know. Election year politics, there's a strong trend that in election year, the whole government tries to spur the economy so they can make their case better. So maybe that helps. But like Joel said, if the economy gets better, that drives the Fed to maybe not be as helpful on their end. So who knows what's going to happen? Inflation is above the Fed's target. That doesn't come down fast. Joel talked about that. But all these things lead us to say, I don't know what's going to change. There's nothing that says to me 2024 is going to be any different locally than 2023 was. So that's where we now are in 4 years of that environment. And so now I think it's time for us to be the change. And so part of the reason for this event, we want to invite a lot of local community leaders, elected officials in to hear this message and talk about how this critical shortage is now kind of stalling what we as a region can do. One more. So looking toward the future, this is where it gets tricky. We have to solve this. I spoke at length last year about how we live, where we live is going to change. Ownership models revolving, we can talk about that. The need for housing is constant, and it is not being met right now the way people would like, as you know, because there are hundreds and hundreds of buyers who would like to own a home, and they can't. So they're forced to rent, and rent prices go up. It's not ideal. Many, many people are not in their ideal living situation. So we need to solve it. I thought your chart, Joel, about the homeownership rates by generation was really interesting. And you can see it clear as people get younger, the homeownership rate drops. And that makes sense. What worries me, and you know, everybody says, what keeps you up at night? This actually does keep me up at night. I worry that these next couple generations aren't going to be able to own homes. It is to that point where as prices go up, things become unaffordable. Mortgage rates aside, just prices going up makes it less affordable. People forced to rent for longer are less likely to be able to save for a down payment, for closing costs, for all those things. It makes that gap wider. And so now we have smart people who run trillion-dollar companies who are saying owning single-family homes and renting them is a pretty good business model. They have an asset that's appreciating and I get good current income. Let's get into this. And so you have companies like Blackstone who own hundreds of thousands of single-family homes in this country, and they buy tens to 20s to 30s thousands a year. Jeff Bezos, one of the 5 richest men in the world, started a fund to buy single-family homes to rent them last year. So think about that. Think about, we're making it harder for people to afford and get access to home ownership. And you have people with tons of money who can come in with cash, outcompete the first-time home buyer, buy that home, I'll rent it to you, but the rent's going to be high. You're not going to be able to save any money, and this gap just gets wider and wider. And so now think about the guy who built Amazon who's going to own single-family homes and rent them. So at what point do we get to, I'm not happy with my apartment, I'm going to go to Amazon and see what Amazon has? And that should scare us.
Alrighty, so again, that was Jim Yockel, the Chief Executive Officer of the Greater Rochester Association of Realtors. Hopefully you enjoyed that segment. I know it was a little bit longer than most of our videos that we do, but I thought what he had to share was very informative. The things certainly that stood out to me actually in my last inventory video that I talked about was with regard to the different price tiers or price ranges, and how there's certain ranges that are actually diminishing or shrinking, but we're actually not also seeing the inventory boost up in some of these other categories. Certainly a lot of the things, if you've been following my videos for any length of time, you'll know saying a lot of very similar things. While I was actually at the presentation or the forum, it was frustrating because to some degree it's like, well, I want to hear a lot of new stuff, and I got a chance to, but it was echoing, unfortunately, a lot of similar things that I was hoping to take away with a lot of positive feedback and stuff to share with my buyers, my sellers, and didn't necessarily walk away with that. I think that the forum was really just an acknowledgement of where we are at with regard to the Rochester and the Finger Lakes market. The primary thing that they discussed was just the lack of inventory, and then the further fundamentals of what's causing that and what can we do to essentially alleviate that. One of our big problems And they did a very good job not allowing the presentation to get very political with regard to their panel and what they were discussing. Bob Duffy certainly went into the issue with regard to how difficult it is to actually have development and the amount of time it takes just to greenlight a project, get soil being broken, and then begin to develop homes. Just for the electrical infrastructure for a development can take upwards of 18 to 24 months. Just for a housing situation for everybody here, that would be great if that was the case. He's also thinking like future businesses and trying to attract companies to come to the Rochester and Finger Lakes market. As he cited, was one of our biggest challenges that we have here is that there's just so much bureaucracy. People see that and they say to themselves, well, I'm just going to go to another place. That as we're a company, a big company, pivoting and looking for a location that we want to make this move over the next several months or year and a half, they need a place that can service that business coming in and fluctuate the amount of need that they're going to have. And we just can't do that. We're not set up for that currently. So that was one of the things that certainly stood out to me. With regard to Jim's presentation, where he was mentioning the things that keep him up at night, certainly I echo a very similar conversations that I've had with my wife as we have kids, and just trying to understand when they're ready to buy in the next 15 or 20 years, what does that start to look like for them? Our house is going to be to the point where they're just unaffordable, and there's going to have to be different options available to us. We don't really know. I would certainly suggest for any buyers or sellers that are out there, one, don't stretch yourself financially thin. I never want to see that happen for any of my clients. But if there is a maneuver that you can make that doesn't put you in a financial compromise, and you are passionate about making either that move or that sale or what have you, certainly do it. You know, it was the right advice back in 2020, 2021, 2022, and last year. And even since that time in 2020, I know for a lot of people that I was working with here locally saying, Mike, I don't understand, the prices aren't worth $50,000, $60,000 over what they're asking. Now those homes that have sold, we've seen examples of them being put onto the market over the last year, this year, and they're going for double just within a year or within 2 to 3 years of essentially their appreciation value going that drastically up in value. So operate within your means, and if you can make it work, that's great. The future, certainly, as these guys are trying to understand it and put together the data that they have, there's a lot of uncertainty out there. So work within your means and just give it your best shot. Again, not putting yourself in a financially compromised position, of course, would be my suggestion. So hopefully this video was helpful to you. Again, I'll come out with more content regarding that forum. Feel free to hit the thumbs up and be sure to click the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future content that we have coming out each and every week. Again, I'm Mike with Crane Realty, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.